Welcome back to the Anchored with Purpose podcast. On today's episode, I've got Deborah Viña, who I got to meet at the Walking with Purpose conference back in April. Let me tell you, Deborah makes the most beautiful rosaries that you've ever seen, including my favorite, the wrist rosary. Now, if you typically listen to this on Apple Podcasts, you're gonna want to also see some of the clips on YouTube because, wow, you've just got to see some of her work. It is beautiful. In this episode, we are talking about praying the rosary. We get authentic and talk about our struggles with it. And Deborah even explains a little bit more about sacramentals in the Catholic Church, which I'll be honest and say that's something that I feel like I don't know enough about, but I'm so excited to learn more. Let's dive in. Feeling stretched thin? Constantly busy, yet wondering if there's more to life than simply getting through the day? Maybe you've lost sight of who you are beneath all of the responsibilities. Maybe your faith feels rushed, your dreams have been sitting on a shelf, and you're craving more peace, purpose, and direction. Friend, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Anchored with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Wilkinson, a Catholic wife, mom, author, speaker, and coach, passionate about helping women reconnect with God, live with greater intention, and confidently step into the purpose that He has for you. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations, inspiring stories, practical encouragement, and faith-filled wisdom to help you deepen your relationship with God, strengthen what matters most, and pursue the dreams that God has placed on your heart. Whether you're navigating a season of transition, searching for clarity, or simply longing to feel more anchored in your everyday life, you'll find encouragement and community here. So whether you're unloading the dishwasher, sitting in the school pickup line, or out for a morning walk, or checking off one more thing on your to-do list, know that you're not alone. Take a deep breath, grab your coffee, and let's spend the next few minutes getting anchored with purpose together. Let's grow in faith, live with purpose, and become the women God has created us to be. Welcome to Anchored with Purpose. Well, hey there, Deborah. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited for everyone to get to know you and to hear more about your story. We got to meet at the Walking with Purpose conference back in April, and it's fun because we didn't even connect over the jewelry first.
Right.
We connected over staying in the same hotel and walking back and forth together, which was just so kind. Anyone who has ever been in downtown St. Louis, we were at Grand Union, which was absolutely beautiful, but nobody wanted to walk by themselves at night. And so Deborah and her husband were there and so graciously said, "You can walk back with us." And it was perfect.
It worked well. It was very nice to meet you. We had a blast. And my husband, our little protector,
It was perfect.
scary guy, as he would say.
A big, scary guy. Now, Deborah, when we did get to connect on the jewelry, I was excited about your wrist rosaries. But before we get into all of that, can you just share a little bit about yourself and the story behind MG Rosary?
Well, the story is kind of accidental. So
I love that.
So I have 5 children. They're all adults. And when the second one was an infant, I was working as a director of religious education in the largest suburban parish in the Houston diocese.
Wow.
And the first day of CCD that year, when she was right after she was born, I got a call at 6:00 from the babysitter. "Deb, I think you forgot something." I had left my own children at the babysitter. So this was the beginning of why I quit working, and I came home and different things happened. But then I needed a way to make money. First I was babysitting, and then MG Rosary came about accidentally. I wanted a rosary for myself with the birthstones of my 5 kids on them. And I found a girl who was making them, but she wasn't doing sterling. So I said, "Oh, I've got those pliers from when I used to make rosaries as a teenager." And so I got them out and what I made.
Oh my gosh. So you've been making them since you were a teenager.
Yeah, well, I stopped when I was in college, and then when I started working because I didn't have time. But that brought it back up. I said, "Oh, this makes great business."
That is impressive. So it goes even further back than when you became a stay-at-home mom. You had started just making them. How did that come about? How did you learn how to make them?
I don't exactly remember, other than there's a website. There's a website now. It was only, and this was before the internet, so it was before. It was in the 70s. Okay, I'm old, and so I got a booklet from Our Lady's Rosary Makers and pliers and materials, all from mail order, and just read the thing and practiced and learned how to do it.
I love that. Now, did you make them and give them as gifts, or did you sell them back then? What were you
I
doing with
I
those in
did
high school?
I did both. I did both. I mostly gave them as gifts, but then once in a while somebody say, "Oh, I need something special for first communion or whatever," and so I would order the parts and make them their special rosary.
Oh my gosh. So you were doing this back in high school, and then you were wanting one with all 5 kids' birthstones. With how perfect is that? A decade for each kid. I love that. And
Right?
since the person who was making them wasn't doing them the way you wanted, you just did this yourself then.
I did.
I love it. And
Just
how did it take off from there?
it went nowhere. I spent money on a beautiful website. I loved my website. It was so pretty. And it was making a little bit of money, but it wasn't really doing a whole lot. And then I developed the wrist rosary when my baby was, I think she was about 4. So it's about over 20 years ago. And I had grown the business a little, worked with local stores doing wholesale here and there. I was making a little bit of money, enough that by the time she was ready to go to kindergarten, I didn't have to go back to work. But the wrist rosary was what really makes the money. So, yeah.
Talk about these for a second because I am hooked. And okay, if our listeners are watching on YouTube, you can see this. If you are just listening, you're gonna want to check out the link in YouTube. So the wrist rosary, it's a bracelet with a magnet, and when you open it up, it is the 5 decade rosary, which
You're hired.
I love it. Let me tell you, Deborah, if I'm like kicking myself for not buying like 20 of these when I was with you, I bought only 3 of them. I bought one for myself, a matching one for my mom, and one for one of my friends who had an upcoming birthday. And I wish I had bought more, but I was telling you before we hit record, I didn't even know like one like this existed. I had a wrist rosary that was different than this, where it only had 10 beads on it.
Mhm.
So then you would just, use it 5 times over. And so when my mom had told me, I was at the conference and I was on the phone with her, and she had said, "Oh, I lost my wrist rosary and I like to wear it when I run. So I have the rosary." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, perfect Mother's Day gift. Let me go look." And you had them. So when you showed me how they opened up, I was like, "Oh, this is incredible." So, oh my gosh, let me tell you what, I wish I had more. That Sunday night after everything was over, I met up with a friend of mine for dinner who was not raised Catholic, but we had the most beautiful conversation about how she's thinking about Catholicism. I showed this bracelet to her and she was like, "This is beautiful. How do I get one?" And I was going to give her the one I had bought for my friend for her birthday and then just order another one from you. And she's like, "No, I want that exact same one." So I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't give you this one or my mom's, but I will give you the website." But they're just incredible. I'm so sorry. I took over. Now,
Probably.
how about you talk? I want to know, how did you come up with this? What made you think of it? And how did it just kind of take off?
Okay. So when I made my first communion, I was given one of those coil 5-decade bracelets, and I loved it. Who knows what happened to it? That was so long ago. And I was thinking one day, I would really like to have a 5-decade accessible bracelet rosary that I can have all the time. And I didn't have I didn't have an idea really, other than I went on the internet, I started looking at things. And so I don't think anybody was making the stretchy ones yet. The coil, I don't like the way the coil looks on me, so that's not really what and it's not very pretty. So that's not what I wanted. I found a website where a lady was making a 5-decade bracelet, similar to what I have, but it had a clasp, and it was dedicated to precious blood. It was beautiful. I said, I want to do something kind of like that. Unfortunately, she's not in business anymore. I can't find her anywhere. I have looked for her for years, just to say, I adapted your design, and here's what I do. Can't find her. So if you see this, give me a call. I don't even know what her name is, but I remember the website was Cynical Rosaries, I believe. Anyway, so I took that. I figured out the math because there's math involved, and I'm not good with math. So, right. So you have to have all the beads, and it has to be able to fit around the wrist. So there's math, and I figured that out. Made a couple of prototypes. Took them to a friend of mine who had a Catholic store at the time, and she sold them for me for a little while. And then I wasn't using a magnet at that time. But then when I figured out that, a magnetic clasp would really up this. And that's what I did. And the rest is history.
Oh my gosh. And how long ago was this?
That would have been 2008, I think.
Well, I've got to tell you, I love the magnetic clasp because it just makes it easy for on and off, especially if you're going to pray. And it's great. I love it, especially for, traveling. It's just always there. Like if you're on the plane, you can just take it off and just pray. You can do that on a walk, like
That's what I do.
anywhere. I love that.
That's
I love it.
exactly. Also, my husband once, well, he says this a lot to customers when we're at conferences. It's like, when you're stuck in traffic, it's going to remind you to pray. And I find myself praying more because, there it is. It's right there on my wrist. And it's like, I looked at him the first time he did this, I looked at him, it's like, you've been praying the rosary? Well, we never prayed the rosary together except at a funeral. Okay. So it's like, are you praying the rosary? Praise God.
Wow,
Thank you,
that's
Little
huge.
Mary. So yeah.
You know what? Let's talk about praying the rosary a second, because I have admitted on this podcast that is something that had been a struggle for me for so long. I talk about on this podcast all of the time this daily faith practice that I have where my first hour of the day is with God. I have a cup of coffee with God. I journal my gratitude. I read scripture. I read devotionals, and I pray. And so the thought of adding the rosary in another 20 minutes is just like, oh, I don't think I can fit that in. Until a friend of mine had shared the 54-day novena that was on the Hallow app. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to just give this a try. And I did. Deborah, I just finished it yesterday, which is big. I read a book about the rosary, which then I gifted to my mom and my friend with their wrist rosary when I gave them to them. But it just helped me have a better understanding of the power of the rosary and helped me connect more with, like, I used to just think it was rote prayers, right? Like, what is this doing? Can you just share a little bit for the woman who maybe is feeling that way? Tell us why you feel called to the rosary and how it's made an impact on your life.
Well, I'd like to say I also was not very faithful to the rosary ever until I was reading The Secret of the Rosary by St. Louis de Montfort. And in there's a story about a nobleman who promoted the rosary and made people pray, passed out rosaries, and really promoted. And he dies. And he goes to his particular judgment. And the Blessed Mother is there. And she says, you did a great job promoting my rosary. You're going back. And this time, pray the rosary.
Wow.
So I said, I got the message. So that's when I really started. I mean, I prayed it here and there, but now I try to do it daily, even if I can't get the whole thing in. You know, a single decade prayed well and intentionally is more powerful than 150 Hail Marys rattled off. And a lot of people don't know that there are meditations to go with each decade. They do think it's a rote thing, you're just rattling off. No, the Hail Marys that you're saying, that's the background music to your meditation. And the Blessed Mother chose those events in the Rosary for a purpose. And if you meditate on them your whole life, you know, we'll go deeper into her, because where is she leading us? Only to her son. So I say, if you're intimidated by how long it is or how difficult it may seem, or you don't know the prayers, use an app, use a booklet, pray 3 good Hail Marys with an intention, and like go from there, build from there, do a decade.
That's such good feedback, such good advice, because I mean, it was intimidating. It was scary. I didn't quite understand it. And I'm so glad that you mentioned St. Louis de Montfort's book, because that keeps coming up. That kept coming up in the book that I read about the Rosary, or should I say, listen to. It comes up. I started listening to the Rosary in a Year podcast. It's brought up in that. It's brought up in Hallow, in the consecration to Mary. And, you know, I think one of the important keys you hit on is educate yourself about the Rosary too, because once you start reading about it and understanding and hearing those testimonials, I think that's huge, especially of the saints and how some of the saints were impacted with the Rosary as well.
Father Calloway wrote a really good book about the Rosary too. He goes through the whole history of it, and he has all kinds of resources in there. What is the name? I think it's called Champions of the Rosary.
Father Calloway, did you
Yes,
say?
Father Donald Calloway.
Okay, we'll have to link to that in the show notes as well. The book that I read, I'm going to pull it up in Audible now because I can't remember the exact title. Like I said, I bought paperback copies as gifts. The Power of the Rosary by Gabriel Castillo.
Sure. He's
Have
local.
you read that too?
We know. Yeah, he's local. His mother's one of my customers.
No way! Are you serious?
Yes, he lives here in Houston.
Oh my goodness, Deborah, I'm obsessed with his book.
He's great. He's a dynamic speaker too.
My goodness. Well, we're going to have to talk offline about that, because that is just incredible. But his book just has a way of explaining it in just a way that I've never thought before. And what's interesting, the way I even found his book, a friend of mine, so we had a group chat from all of us that went to the Walking with Purpose conference together. And I had literally just ordered the book that goes along with the Rosary in a Year podcast. And one of my friends had sent me the link to the book saying, hey, I'm listening to this right now. Does anybody else want to listen with me? And I was like, oh, I just got the Rosary in a Year podcast book, but thanks, maybe later. And then I had FOMO, Deborah. I was like, well, I kind of do want to listen to this now. I finished it in like 2 days. It was so good. And then ordered the copies as gifts to go with the wrist rosaries. I think I'm going to have to order the paper copy for myself too, just to have. But he also mentions that, he mentions the book by St. Louis de Montfort, but also talks about how this is kind of like, his book is like an updated version of it, connecting it to modern times, which I thought was just incredible. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of your designs. How do you create some of these different pieces to help people feel connected to their faith?
Well, I want to say the wrist rosary is pretty much, I feel like I don't do original creation easily. I have ideas sometimes, but the wrist rosary is kind of designs itself. The beads have to be a certain size and whatever. And I do get different stones and whatever for that. But it's the big regular rosaries that are, that's what I truly love to make. And I'm guided somewhat by color theory, but also I'll tell a Holy Spirit story. I have this great idea for a rose. I got these beautiful beads, and all those are going to look so good together with this other thing. And I put them together, and I'm going, ew. Oh. So I put them down on my board, my feeding area, and they fall next to a different bead. That's perfect. So it's like, oh, that's what you wanted me to do. Okay, so I got to get that message too. So a lot of it is driven by what people are looking for special orders, or if I'm making something for a particular ministry, a store, I lost my train of thought. Whatever different things I have been asked to make them for, and then they end up being popular. So one of my most popular rosaries is a Saint Hubert rosary. People go, "Who the heck is Saint Hubert?" He is the patron saint of hunters. So in the Austin area, there used to be they're gone now, but there used to be a store called Credo Cafe. And when the man who owned the store, he bought this kind of a strip center business park kind of thing. It had a big sign out in front with this giant deer on the top of the sign with the antlers. So they took St. Hubert as their patron because they're not taking down that giant deer from 25 feet up. And so I said, "Oh, well, let me make something with that theme." And I found a rosary center with St. Hubert. It's a hunting horn with the deer on it, and I made that for him. And then just took off. I've sold it to different places, and it's just really, really fun. It's tiger, beautiful.
I
So
love that.
just
I love that. So how do you then decide like what other which rosary centers you choose, what you're going to be adding? How do you pick those?
well, it's shopping. It's not really shopping I get to do. It depends. If I have an idea and I go looking for the parts and I see what's available. So, because I'm not making them myself. I do have friends who make their own stuff. If I need a specialized sender, I have a friend who makes resin. So she'll put a picture in there and cover it with resin. So I've done that a few times. But normally it's based on whatever's available. It's nice because there are some ugly things out there. And there's some really beautiful, and then there's it has to be affordable. So all those things go into making it. I like to try and make my pieces a little bit different than others, especially with the Our Father bead. I like it to be distinctive. So when you're praying, you feel. I'm at Our Father because it's larger
Appreciate that. Yes.
shape or whatever.
Well, it's a completely different shape and a completely different type of bead too, which, most of the time when I'm praying, unless I'm walking, because I don't walk with my eyes closed, but most of the time I'm praying the rosary with my eyes closed. And when I get to this one, I can feel it. I love that. Now, and this is why I was asking. So, on my friend's rosary bracelet that I had bought for her, it had the Miraculous Medal on hers, and I picked that specifically. And this one, I think, is this the Benedictine cross on this one, I think?
On a crystal?
Let's see.
It is.
It is? Okay, that's what I thought. So I was really just wondering, like, what makes you pick? Is there, do you like feel like I don't know, certain colors? Do you feel drawn towards certain medals, or you just kind of go with what you see?
Well, I used to do both Miraculous Medals and Benedictine medals and it was actually a matter of economy. Okay. So I make stone and I make crystal, and the stones, of course, are more expensive than the crystals, believe it or not. And so at the time, I was using the Benedict medals on the stone because the Benedict medals were a lot cheaper than the Miraculous medals. Trying to balance out the cost, the underlying cost. And I quit doing that because I quit being able to get the cheaper Benedict medals, and I decided all my medals needed to be Italian. I don't want to have Chinese medals at all. And so they were the same price. And I have a contractor who helps me now. So it's easier for me to just send off one thing to her instead of having two different things. So the Miraculous Medal is very special to me, and I tend to use that. Though if people ask, I have Benedict medals and I will put them on there. No problem. I'm surprised you have a Benedict medal because I put Miraculous medals on crystal bracelets.
That this one had it it's so many things have happened since then, Deborah. So I had gotten this one from you, and then when I was chatting with the ladies from CB Jewelry, I had gotten the necklace and earrings that had the Benedictine cross on them. And I had never even heard of that before this conference. So I've been getting a world of an education.
It's very powerful.
That is what I hear.
And Saint Benedict, he's from the 4th century, so very, very long time ago. He lived into the 5th century, but his own monks tried to kill him.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Absolutely. If you see, I'll have to send it to you. There's an explanation of what all the symbols mean on the cross side of the Benedictine medal. And it basically is drink the poison yourself is one of the things, because what the monks did is they tried to poison him by putting poison in his cup, and they set it before him and the cup exploded. So he never drank it. And they didn't like the strict way he ran the monastery. And so they wanted to be a little looser. So he's also a big, a lot of traditional Catholics are really devoted to Saint Benedict for that reason. Strict observance of the doctrine and the way of life.
Yeah. Now, I would love to know a little bit more. You said you're drawn to put miraculous medals on the rosaries. Tell me more about that.
So the image on the front of the Miraculous Medal is Our Lady of Grace, the Immaculate Conception. So she's the Mediatrix of Grace is the patron. That's what the MG stands for in MG Rosary, Mediatrix of Grace. So that's why I was drawn to the Miraculous Medal. And then when you know the story of, it's really an Immaculate Conception medal. But when the Blessed Mother gave it to St. Catherine Labouré, and she had it struck, and people were wearing it as instructed, many miracles happened attached to that medal, and that's how it got the name Miraculous Medal.
I love that. So after I finished reading that book by Gabriel, I read this one also, The Miraculous Medal, Pendant of Power. Have you read this yet?
I have not. Oh, Christine Watkins.
Okay. So good. Can't recommend it enough.
You're right.
This is one that I listened to. It was a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
Listened to it and then had to order it in print too, because I wanted to be able to reference it. And I'm so glad I did, because there's actually pictures in here. There are some absolutely incredible stories of different miracles that have happened because of it. So I was given mine over the summer. A friend of mine went to Paris, went to where Our Lady appeared to St. Catherine Labouré. She brought these back for all of us, like a whole group of girls, gave them to us. I put this on my necklace with my crucifix, and that night I had a vision of Mary, which was wild. Like I could just see this like bright blue light in my, and I was sleeping and she came to me in a dream. It was wild. I've never said this on the podcast either, Deborah. So here we are. And I was with one of my friends in my dream who she was with us that night. She was given a medal too. She's the only one of my friends who is not a baptized Catholic in that group that was given a medal too. So I know that has significance. But I didn't understand a lot about the Miraculous Medal. So this book popped up in my Audible as, well, if you liked the book about the Rosary, you would like this one. And I said, well, why not? I want to learn more about it, right? I'm going to put this link in the show notes as well, along with the book about the Rosary. But this book, like one of the stories in there, it was just so incredibly eye-opening. And it showed just the power of the medal. They all did. But this one, it was the conversion of a former satanic high wizard. And it was that story right there. Listening to it was 2 hours long, but worth it. Scary, terrible, horrible things in the story. I didn't know we were going to go here today, Deborah, but here we are. But such just eye-opening, and something that really makes you appreciate the Miraculous Medal and just what wearing it can do. And if you had asked me honestly a year ago, like I would have been like, it's just a medal. It's just a piece of jewelry, right? I never would have thought how it literally the miracles that can come of it. But it's incredible. So much so that I literally ordered 100 medals as I was listening to the book. I ordered 100 blessed medals to give away to people because it's just that beautiful of a story and what it can do.
Aren't we blessed as Catholics to have sacramentals? There's
100%.
so much power there that people don't even understand. I know there's this priest I follow online, Father David Nix. He does the same thing. He always has miraculous medals on a chain because people won't necessarily wear them if they don't have something, a way to wear them. And he just goes along the street and passes them out to people.
I love it. And in fact, I don't have them here. I have them on another desk in my office. So they came with these black cords that I could put them on.
Yeah.
And I ended up ordering these cute little like organza bags that you can put them, kind of like what you put the wrist rosaries in when you hand them to some, just like that. I might have to put some cords in. But in this book, there's so many stories of Mother Teresa and how Mother Teresa actually was handing miraculous medals out to everybody. Like she handed out thousands and thousands of miraculous medals in her lifetime. And I thought, well, we're supposed to do what the saints did, right? So if I want to be a saint, that's one thing I can do. And it's kind of hard to give them out without like feeling awkward, right? Especially because I'm not somebody who really has had a deep understanding of sacramentals. Like I'm someone who I suppose I'm more on the evangelical side, where I was drawn to the evangelical church, almost left the Catholic Church and have been finding my way, deeper and deeper into the Catholic faith. So maybe could you just share for our listeners just a little bit about sacramentals?
Sure. So sacramentals are physical things, physical items that refer us to the sacraments. So they're not sacraments. They really have no power of their own, like a sacrament does, but they point us toward the church, toward the sacraments. And as physical beings, they're very important for us because, me and Jesus, okay, but I've got this body and we're not just souls trapped in a body. The body is an essential part of our being. So we need physical ways to remind us of our relationship and with Christ and the church and the Blessed Mother and the Holy Trinity, all of them. And so, and I think the Rosary is one of the most powerful sacramentals. And when you have a miraculous medal on, it's even better. And make sure it's blessed. Okay.
Yes, make sure.
Did you know Padre Pio said Rosary is the weapon for our times. And this is what I tell people. If they're amenable, I live in Texas. We have open carry laws here, right? Okay. So I say the Rosary is your weapon, open carry.
Yes. So good. Are we wearing the same one right now?
No, this is my birthstone one with my kids' birthstone.
Okay. It looked very similar. Well, you're absolutely right. The rosary is your weapon and it's so incredible, like so incredibly powerful. And, I'll share as someone who struggled to pray it. And I mean, I had gone years without praying it. And now, I had done this 54-day novena. So like saying it. And there were times that I've done 4 in one day, praying the whole rosary with all of the mysteries. Could you just share a little bit about the mysteries and then the power of praying the whole rosary?
I don't think I've ever prayed a whole rosary
Really?
in one day. No, some days it's like, oh, all I can handle right now is a decade. Okay, but I promise to pray it really nice. Anyway,
Thank you though. That's so honest and so authentic too.
nope, you forgot.
It is. How about just sharing a little bit about when you're praying, what's your favorite? Do you go by the mysteries of the day or are you drawn towards a particular set of mysteries?
I tend to do the mysteries of the day okay, I'm very traditional, and so I usually pray the rosary in Latin. So, but don't let that intimidate anybody.
That's impressive.
Whatever your natural language is great. Okay. I find that makes the rote prayers fade into the background even more. So I can concentrate more on mysteries. So I tend to just do the 15 mysteries. I don't tend to use luminous mysteries unless I'm praying them with other people. But the sorrowful are my favorite. And I do also like to do them seasonally. So in Advent, for example, I mean, normally you'll pray all of the mysteries and you'll do the joyful on Sunday because it's Advent. I like to do the joyful mysteries every day in Advent. I like to do the sorrowful mysteries every day in Lent. And so that's how I like to do the mysteries. And, I had a friend once who she was also a rosary maker. And this was before John Paul II had come up with the Luminous Mysteries and published that. I don't remember the name of the letter, but he put it out in a letter. And she had done some very similar mysteries. I guess there were some that didn't speak to her. And so she looked at other events in the life of Jesus and Mary, and she would meditate on those. So you can be creative with, but I do like the fact that the Blessed Mother gave us certain mysteries to reflect on. And some of them are hard. The crowning of Mary. Okay. It's easy to reflect on a historical event that you could, picture, but okay, here's the Blessed Trinity crowning the Blessed Mother. But you have to think about not necessarily just the event, but what were the effects of the event.
That's a good perspective. So good. Well, Deborah, for our listeners who want to learn more about how they can get one of your rosaries, especially one of your wrist rosaries, or connect with you online, how can they find you?
So I'm on Facebook, but I don't get on there very often. I know you young people with Instagram, TikTok. I don't have time for all that social media. Okay. In fact, for Lent, I gave up Facebook altogether, and it was life changing. So now I took it off of my phone.
Good for you.
So,
yeah, I gave it up. I gave up scrolling Facebook and Instagram for Lent, and it was the best. It was so good.
It's the time suck. So my website is MG-Rosary.com.
And we'll have a link
and that
to
is
that.
That is the best way. I have mostly wrist rosaries on there. There's a little bit of jewelry, and it is under construction. I'm completely redoing it, modernizing it, making it look a little more elegant because it's kind of clunky right now.
Well, I'm excited because I saw on there that you are doing special orders, which I think is great. So if somebody does want their kids' birthstones or, anything like that they can put those requests in and have a rosary made to their specifications.
Absolutely. I started the business making a mother's rosary, and I have done wrist rosaries. I have my wrist rosary with my kids' birthstones, but I've done them for grandmas and, people with 10 children. They say, how are you going to do that? It won't fit on the Our Fathers. We'll work it out. So we'll work it out. There's 59 beads to work with. So we can find enough beads. There aren't too many people who have, 59 grandchildren.
So that's perfect. What a great, thoughtful gift to give that to somebody. I love it. Well, Deborah, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for all of the work that you do. And I'm just so grateful that our listeners got a chance to learn from you today.
Thank you so much. This has been a joy. I'm so glad to see you again, too.
This will not be the last time, for sure. For sure. And to our listeners, we'll see you next time. Stay anchored with purpose. Friend, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. If today's episode encouraged you, challenged you, or reminded you that you're not alone, would you do me a favor? Share it with a friend who could use a little encouragement too. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow the podcast and leave a review. This helps more women discover the show and become anchored with what matters most. For more faith-filled encouragement, free resources, and tools to help you live with purpose and intention, visit anchoredwithpurpose.com. And as you head back into your day, my prayer is that you walk away feeling encouraged, inspired, and a little more anchored in God's purpose for your life. Until next time, my friend, keep seeking God, keep showing up for what matters most, and keep pursuing the life He created you to live. Stay anchored with purpose.